Senator David Vitter, Republican of Louisiana, joins us now. Senator Vitter, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brian and Larry, good to be with you. Well, I assume they don't need this in Washington, D.C. There are plenty of big asses.
All right, well, if I were you, I would walk away right now because that was just pretty good.
That is a drop the mic moment.
But we actually need to fill the next few minutes, so stick with us.
All right.
Senator, you have come out really strong against this idea that there is going to be some sort of loophole now that protects members of Congress, their staff, members of the administration from having to enter the insurance exchanges that have been set up by Obamacare. If you'll remember, and I'm sure you do, back on Christmas Eve 2009 when this was being jammed through your Senate there with 60 votes because there was no opportunity for a filibuster there. They had 60. One of the things that made it somewhat politically palatable for the senators who were going to be up for re-election in 2010 was that they could say, well, listen, we're going to have to follow these same rules. They put that in there. Now they figured out a way to get it out. What are you going to do about that?
Well, Brian and Larry, this is really outrageous. It's exactly what America rightly hates about Washington. Laws that Washington passes apply to all of America, but they don't apply just that way to Washington. And we thought we had actually fixed that in Obamacare, at least, with regard to members of Congress and our staff. But now there's this behind closed door deal to get around it and to avoid that. And again, it's outrageous. Obamacare is really broken. It really needs to be fixed. But it needs to be fixed for America, not just Washington. So I'm looking at this fix, seeing if it's legal to begin with, and seeing what we can do in Congress to back it out. Obamacare should apply exactly as it does to America, to all members of Congress, to all of our staffs, to all of President Obama's top political appointees. And then once we actually live that pain and feel that pain directly, then maybe we can motivate folks to do something about it. But we need to fix it for America, not just Washington.
You know, I hear people on Capitol Hill say, oh, well, if we don't fix this problem, we're going to lose our best people. There's going to be a brain drain up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and
I want to say,
welcome to Obamacare. That's my point.
That's exactly I was going to say, oh, my goodness, do you not realize that that applies to every business in America?
Yeah, welcome to Obamacare. That's my point. We need to understand that this is a problem with the law for America, not just for Washington.
And Senator David Vitter, we had your colleague Rand Paul on last week. We had your colleague Senator Mike Lee on about 2 weeks ago. They are adamant to stand firm and hold up the progress in the Senate there with regard to a continuing resolution or the debt ceiling. So that in exchange for defunding Obamacare, clearly the votes over in the House, do you stand with them in trying to hold up proceedings in the Senate until Obamacare is addressed by the majority leader?
Absolutely. I've been fighting to repeal Obamacare, or in this case, to defund it from the get-go, and I will do anything to try to get that done. Obviously, that's a tall hill to climb because we all work together in the Harry Reid Senate, and then President Obama would actually have to sign the law. So that's a tall hill to climb, but I'm for anything that will either for now or forever defund or suspend Obamacare. You know, one thing we should also demand at an absolute minimum is President Obama is talking about delaying the so-called employer mandate. Well, if big businesses get off for a while on that, so should every individual, so should every American. So the individual mandate should go hand in hand with the employer mandate and not be treated differently and not be put into effect at a different time.
Right now, Congress is going off on the August recess. And I know, in my perspective, you're on the right side of this issue.
By the way, if I can just interject, it was very interesting going back to this Obamacare fix for Congress that was announced right after members had safely gotten away from the scene of the crime, had just left Washington, had cleared out, and that's when the deal was announced.
Well, I guess the larger point I have here is that, you know, you're on the right side of this issue from my perspective, but for those Democrats who are still standing by Obamacare, and by the way, that number is dwindling drastically, they're going to hear a lot from people during this next coming weeks. What do you think they're likely to hear?
Well, I think they have been hearing about the train wreck that Obamacare implementation is. They have been hearing about all of the practical difficulties that it's creating. People, in many cases, being thrown off insurance that they like, not being allowed to keep that because their employers are saying, look, it's a lot easier and cheaper for me for you to go to the exchanges.
Well, how nervous are those Democrats then? If they're hearing this and they've got to run for re-election, just how nervous are they?
Like your colleague, Mary Landrieu.
They're very nervous. I mean, they're so nervous that in some cases I think it was a factor in their retiring, a la Max Baucus. Now, I can't prove that. But, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that a few weeks before he announced he wasn't running again, he called Obamacare's implementation a, quote, train wreck.
David Vitter, again, I just want to bring it back to the whole idea of possibly shutting down the Senate in the face of a continuing resolution. Many people say, well, that would be the Republicans shutting down the government, and, of course, there was political fallout when that was done in 1996. Do you I mean, I guess you have to weigh the two questions. What would be worse for the American economy and, for that matter, the Republican Party politically, being seen as shutting down the government in the wake of this standoff, or allowing Obamacare to go through? I mean, what would be worse?
I don't know. I hope we don't get there. I hope we can do something real to defund Obamacare and not get there. We're going to have to take it a step at a time.
Well, do you think Harry Reid, as long as he has a breath in his body, is going to allow that?
No. I mean, unfortunately, I think we were delivered a real body blow to that fight in the last election. You know, that was the opportunity to truly defund Obamacare with the election results, and we weren't able to achieve that. So, as I said from the beginning, that's a very tall hill to climb, because that bill has to pass not only through the House, which we can do, but through the Harry Reid Senate, and then it would have to be signed into law by the president.
So you've got, though, an election coming up.
Sure. And
a lot of people are looking, we were looking at it just a little earlier, Republicans, look like they might have a pretty good chance of taking back the Senate.
Yep, absolutely. We had, to take back the Senate, we need a net pickup of 6 seats, and we have 8 to 10 current Democratic seats that are absolutely in play. Democrats are playing defense in 2 senses. First, just in terms of the seats that are up for re-election, there are mostly Democratic seats that could go Republican, not vice versa. Secondly, they're really playing defense in terms of all of these issues, in terms of a very sluggish economy, in terms of all the problems with Obamacare coming home to roost, all of the scandals plaguing the administration, on and on.
Well, Senator,
so it's a big opportunity, particularly on the Senate side.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this. Continue the good work.
Thanks, Brian and Larry, very much.